Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what concern is that to you and me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now standing there were 6 stone water jars for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with water." And they filled them up to the brim. He said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the chief steward." So they took it. When the steward tasted the water that had become wine and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the steward called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and then the inferior wine after the guests have become drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now." Jesus did this, the first of his signs, in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory. And his disciples believed him. Hear him to read. Imagine the embarrassment of running out of wine at your wedding. Imagine what that must have felt like. Now, I would remind you that this wedding was probably not like your weddings. If your wedding was like mine, it lasted somewhere between 8 and 10 hours from the whole thing, from the time you got up in the morning to the time that you found your hotel room and fell asleep at night. And the party, where you were responsible for feeding people and making sure they had enough to drink, was 4, 5, 6 hours maybe. The wedding that Jesus and his mother and the disciples were attending lasted a week. So again, I say to you, imagine the utter horror and embarrassment, public and otherwise, of running out of wine. This is a big problem. We don't know why this happened. I do know, though, that years ago, my parents threw a 50th anniversary party for my grandparents, my dad's parents. It was a wonderful event, as those kind of anniversaries are, and all of their friends made the journey to my parents' backyard, and my parents had decided that they did not want to be responsible for cooking for that large an event. So they got a caterer, and they sat down, and they had all the RSVPs for people who were coming to this. And so they talked about food, and they talked about quantity, and the caterer assured my parents that they had not only enough food, but they had more than enough food. And then something happened. I don't know if my grandparents' friends had fasted for a week. I don't know what the deal was, but they came and they ate all the food so quickly that by 1 in the afternoon, it was gone. And when you live in a small town in upstate New York on a Saturday afternoon, it's not like you can just go like that and get more. And my father had to scramble to find food to feed these people. That is a story that still gets told. So he knows kind of what this would feel like. And so Jesus' mother comes to him, maybe talking with the women of the household about this problem. We have no wine. Now remember, it's not just that wine was the celebratory drink. Wine was pretty much the everyday drink because you couldn't always trust the water. So this meant that nobody was drinking anything. And Jesus looks at her and says, "So what? It's not my party. It's not your party. That's for so-and-so to figure out." She throws up her hands, as mother will do, and says, "Do whatever he tells you to do. Listen to him. I can't be bothered with this." So Jesus looks at them and he says, "Go get 20 to 30 gallon jars, big stone jars that were used for hand washing before the meal. Go and fill them up. And of course, we know the story. The story is that that water, which went in there, 20 to 30 gallons each, 6 jars. So 120 to 180 gallons suddenly becomes wine. It's incredible. Saves the day. The party continues. The embarrassment is abated. No one knows, least of all the chief steward, who would have known everything that was going on in that kitchen, what has actually happened. It's an amazing moment. It's the first moment in his ministry, according to John. And interestingly, John refers to this as the first of Jesus' signs, not miracles. We often refer to it as the miracle of turning water into wine. But I think it's helpful for us not to do that, to refer to it as a sign. And the reason for that is this. This is a moment where Jesus engages in radical hospitality and generosity. He's made it very clear that he doesn't have to do anything. It's not his house. It's not his party. His ministry hasn't started. He has no responsibility whatsoever for doing what he does. And yet he does it anyway. And he doesn't do it just a little bit, where he says, well, let's get enough wine for the bride and the bridegroom so that they can have a party. Maybe we'll do some for their parents. He makes 180 gallons of wine. I'm not even sure that I know what 180 gallons of wine looks like. I mean, the tank in your car might hold 15 or 20 gallons. So it's bigger than that. Maybe it's a couple of bathtubs full. I don't know. The point is, it's a lot. It is radically generous. And apparently, oh, by the way, it's really good wine. And this, for us, friends, is a marker. Something that we should be paying attention to. Not so much because it's an incredible story. Because the incredible story only takes you so far, because at the end of the day, you walk out of here and you say, well, I can't do that. I wouldn't have the faintest idea how to turn water into wine. But it's a marker for us because it demonstrates to us how we as Christians are to live. Our job is to model Christ. Our job then, according to this, is to be radically generous. Not just with money, but with time, with presence, with gifts, and graces. This is what we're called to do. And we're called to do that all out of proportion to what we might normally be responsible for. It's a big one to swallow. It's a difficult one to approach. Where would you start? One of the things that I have found about being radically generous or radically hospitable is that we don't always know where to start, but we know when it's happening to us. We know when someone has gone the extra mile for us. We can feel it. We know it. It touches us somewhere deep inside. We sometimes have trouble describing what it was, when it happened, what it looked like. But we know that it did. And so, for me, and for you, that's our challenge. It's going the extra mile. It's doing what seems ridiculously all out of proportion to what would be normally expected.